Hey everybody, I'm Dan Harris of the Fantasy Pros Football Podcast. Thanks for checking out our video series over at youtube.com/fantasypros. Go on and head over to Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Give us a follow over at Fantasy Pros. Today we're going to be talking about my top 10 breakout candidates for the 2020 fantasy football season. Number 10, Hayden Hurst. Hurst's average draft position is that of only a borderline starter, but he should be much higher than that. Austin Hooper saw 97 targets in just 13 games for the Falcons last year, and that's not an anomaly for a tight end in Dirk Cutter's system, as Tony Gonzalez saw 118 targets per season under Cutter. Hurst rarely even played half the snaps last year in Baltimore, but he was Pro Football Focus's 8th highest graded tight end at the position and near the top in yards per target. He's likely to play quite a bit out of the slot this year, where targets are more valuable. In other words, if you liked Hooper's production last year, you're going to love Hurst this year. Number 9 is Allen Lazard. Look, Aaron Rodgers is not the same quarterback he was in his prime, but he's still one of the most talented passers in the game. And although Matt LaFleur's system doesn't do him any favors, there's a good chance that Rodgers wants to make a statement this year after the Packers did little to help their immediate chances in the draft. Enter Lazard, the likely number 2 receiver for the Packers this year, with Devin Funchess opting out. Rodgers has always spoke positively of Lazard, who doesn't have overwhelming speed, but at 6'5" and 230 pounds, has shown the ability to win contested catches. He was second on the team last year in air yards, yards per target, and yards per route run, and he offers both the ability to be a weekly producer and value as a high-end handcuff should Davante Adams get injured. He's got plenty of breakout potential, and he's virtually free in drafts. Alright, let's go over to the quarterback position at number 8 with Daniel Jones. Jones had a wild rookie season, finishing top 5 at the quarterback position in 30% of his games and providing almost no value in the rest. But it's hard to ignore a rookie who averaged over 250 passing yards per game and was on pace for over 350 yards rushing in a full season. There are reasons to be cautious with Jones. He's got a new offensive coordinator without any preseason games to iron out the kinks, and he faces a really tough opening schedule. But so long as all his weapons stay healthy, he should be able to find his way to decent fantasy production through the air, adding a solid floor with his rushing ability. Number 7, Cam Akers. Akers' outlook was and still is a little cloudy, but with Darrell Henderson suffering a mild hamstring injury, a breakout season looks more and more likely. Akers played behind a terrible offensive line at Florida State, but if you watch his tape, you can see how he bounces off tackles well and is an excellent runner. He can also catch passes out of the backfield, which in the Rams offense is a huge plus. The Rams had little draft capital and chose to spend their first pick, a second rounder, on Akers, despite having both Henderson and Malcolm Brown on the roster. So they obviously envision him as someone who can contribute right away. With Henderson's mild injury, Akers has the chance to grab a hold of the backfield out of the gate and not let go. Number 6 is Blake Jarwin. Jarwin and Jason Witten saw 124 targets last year, with Witten seeing 83 of them. The vast majority of those should go to Jarwin now, with the Cowboys keeping the same offense under Kellen Moore, meaning 90 to 100 targets for Jarwin is well within range. Jarwin was 6th among tight ends last year in yards per target and 8th in yards per route run, and the Cowboys gave him a 4-year extension, signaling their intent for him to be the guy at the tight end position. Along with Hayden Hurst, Jarwin represents the handful of tight ends that have a legitimate chance to be a top 6 or 7 option at the position without batting an eye. For number 5, let's discuss Gardner Minshew. You're not considering Minshew in single quarterback leagues, but you might as well if you want to wait as long as possible to draft one. Tags wrote a great series called Boom Bust and Everything in Between, in which he noted that Minshew was a top 18 fantasy quarterback 71.4% of the time, 12th best among the position. There are a couple of reasons why. First, he had the best passer rating on passes of at least 20 yards downfield. He also had the 5th most rushing yards among quarterbacks last year, but don't hear about that much because he never scored any touchdowns. There is a legitimate path to him finishing as an easy top 10 quarterback, and that means you should be drafting him as a solid QB2 at the very least, with plenty of upside for more. At number 4, let's talk about DJ Chark. There's certainly an argument to be made that Chark already broke out, but since he has a great chance to vastly outperform his average draft position, he makes the list. Through week 11 last year, he was the wide receiver 5 in half PPR formats. You just heard me talk about Gardner Minshew's success with deep passes. A lot of that was and should continue to be because of Chark. He also dominates out of the slot, where he should see some extra work this year. With plenty of passing work to be found for Jacksonville, Chark should continue the breakout year he started last season. At number 3, DeAndre Swift. There's plenty of buzz around Jonathan Taylor, and rightfully so, but do not forget about Swift and his chance to have a major impact. Kerryon Johnson remains with the Lions, and the offensive line continues to be questionable. But a team like the Lions does not use the 35th pick in a draft on a running back unless it intends to use him. Swift had a fantastic career in Georgia and is an outstanding pass catcher, so at the very least, he should factor in heavily as a receiver. That's especially important in Detroit, where Matthew Stafford has a history of targeting the running backs, averaging 109 targets to the position from 2015 to 2018. Johnson's presence remains an impediment, but if Swift can perform well early and earn the lead role, a breakout season may await. At number 2, DeAndre Johnson. Johnson is an excellent route runner and was the 41st ranked wide receiver in half PPR scoring formats last year, despite having Mason Rudolph and Devlin Hodges throwing him the ball. Now with Ben Roethlisberger back, the entire Steelers offense, particularly the passing game, should see a boost. Remember, Roethlisberger had supported multiple fantasy-relevant receivers plenty of times in his career, so there's room for both Johnson and Juju Smith-Schuster to produce. Even if you're worried about James Washington, the Steelers often play 3 receiver sets. If Roethlisberger stays healthy, it's hard to see Johnson not producing big time. And finally, number 1 on the breakout list has to be Jonathan Taylor, and it would have been disingenuous to suggest otherwise. Marlon Mack remains and has looked decent in camp, so you're probably going to need to wait at least a few weeks for Taylor to really take off. But the Colts traded up for Taylor in the 2nd round, and they're in win-now mode. Running behind what is perhaps the best offensive line in football, and one that fits his explosive style really well, Taylor should smash if he can see the workload. Although he's not a great pass catcher, he should excel on the ground and take over the lion's share of the carries soon enough. When he does, touchdowns and yardage should be aplenty, and a breakout season should await. Thank you guys for tuning in to my top 10 breakout candidates for the 2020 fantasy football season. Let me know in the comments section who your breakouts are. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/FantasyPros, and click that little notification button so you never miss any of the great videos that we're going to be producing all season long.